Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I am your host, Rashid, and I am so blessed to be here before you to teach you or to go over some of the latest breaking news and to show you the lunatics have left the asylum and they are wreaking havoc on the world. It's amazing to me how Western media and Western so-called and quote unquote news outlets continue to overlook America's part in these wars around the globe. Whether you know this or not, America and Europe are waging multiple wars on multiple continents as we speak. They've just helped to overthrow an elected leader in South America. They are waging war on Africa. They are trying to keep the Caribbean and the island nations under their control. If you look at what was going on in the Pacific, America threatened the Solomon Islands for a friendship with China. It's crazy, right? This would be unacceptable if the Solomon Islands entered into a military agreement with China and China were to open up any kind of logistics or military basing. Now, I want you to think about that coming out of a nation that has publicly 800 to 1,000, 5,000 military bases and facilities around the world. I want you to just think about that. I can and no one else can. The rules apply to you and you only and not me. Why? Because I am exceptional. And anyone that I deem exceptional gets some of the same privileges that I have. This is why this world cannot continue to go on this way, because there's no justice, there's no fairness, there's no equity in any of this. And the leaders of the world continue to believe that they can escape the very laws of nature, the very laws that God laid at the base of the universe. And I continue to tell you that you are not an exception to the rule of cause and effect. And in science, cause and effect says that any action will elicit an equal or greater reaction. So for the last few decades and the last few centuries, the colonial West has been able to impose their will on the masses of the population of the planet Earth with little to no blowback when we look at it. This is the day of reckoning. This is the day of reckoning. A lot of you don't want to deal with this because reality sometimes is not easy to swallow. Reality is a pill that we often don't like to pop in our mouth because sometimes it's bitter for us. But the reality of the situation is that it is America and the Western world that is ravaging the world. They're waging war across the world. And they came up with the scheme about carbon emissions. And they're trying to impose this scheme of limiting carbon emissions. But check this out. On the developing world, they want the developing world to agree to limiting carbon emission, and the propaganda machine is continually beating in our heads and stuff. But America and the Western world make up a vast majority of carbon emissions. But they want the rest of the world, the developing world, to commit to stringent protocols against carbon emission. This is an attack on their economic basis. And I want you to understand, America and the Western world have been accountable for 80 to 90% of all carbon emissions, period. Right? Now, with that said, they want you, the developing world, to sign agreements with them stating that you will limit carbon emissions to X, Y, and Z. They didn't do it in their development now. And that is why they were able to conquer the economics, the manufacturing, the technological part, right? And the military part. But they want to bring in carbon emissions to limit the rise of other nations so that they can always stand on their seat, their throne, I should say. Oh, I see Rashid in the background. He just entered the booth. I'll bring him in just a second. So all of these things that you see the Western world trumpet now. These are really to maintain their sway and their position, be it economically, militarily, or politically, the so-called rules-based order. They're fighting like hell to maintain what they deem as the rules-based order. You understand? And they're going to use all of these tricks, and they're going to trump up all of these illusions and make all of these people believe in these illusions that they put forth in order to stymie, stemmy, or stop economic and technological development of what they deem as the third world or the developing world. So the name of the show today, right, is that the Western world is waging a war of terror, right? On the rest of the world. We're watching this in real time. They're just not doing it militarily, even though that is a big part of it. They're doing it politically. They're doing it economically. They're trying to stop trade between nations. They're trying to stop nations from building commerce with each other. They're trying to stop nations from being friends with each other. As a matter of fact, this is what, let me go to something real quick, since I'm talking about this. So the the White House spokesman, John Kirby, who was a military man and became the spokesman, see the revolving doors, for the Joe Biden White House. This is what he says. And let me read this and I'll bring Rashid in. The name of the article is U.S. shocked that sanctions produce defense partnership between Russia and Iran. Stop right there. Iran and China, and Russia's partnership or friendship goes back beyond America's arrogance, right? True, there were suspicions and all of this stuff, but the United States is shocked, quote unquote, that the sanctions, the illegal sanctions that she imposed upon Iran and has imposed upon Iran since Iran overthrew the corrupt government of the Shah and has maintained those sanctions because Iran refuses to bow to the dictates of the West. And the illegal and immoral sanctions that she has imposed on Russia because Russia was forced at hand to go into Ukraine has produced a defense partnership. And America is shocked and appalled about that. What did I tell you at the beginning of the show? According to the laws of cause and effect, the basic laws of the foundation of the universe, scientists tell you that every action will elicit what? An equal or greater reaction, right? Okay, let's go further into this. It says the White House has expressed shock over a full-scale defense partnership between Russia and America, both targets of illegal U.S. sanctions. Stop right there. Why is the U.S. in awe, in shock, in uproar over this so-called partnership, this strategic or this military partnership? First of all, if this were to blossom into a full-scale partnership, this will weaken America's hand in breaking Iran, because America want to go into Iran and ravage Iran. Excuse me. What did Dick Cheney say? Anybody can go to Baghdad, but real men go to Tehran, meaning that they want to wage war against Iraq and Iran and all of the nations around. But Iran stands as that grand prize of the Middle Eastern, Southwest Asian nations that America wants to break, because if she breaks that, she has broken Afghanistan somewhat. But if she breaks Iran, she is now in the underbelly of Pakistan, India, China, and Russia. And that is her plans. That is her plan, to get there so that she can weaken and eventually balkanize these nations so that they will no longer be a threat to her, NATO, or Israel, because anyone that possesses a defense potential that can rebuff U.S. and NATO military plans, or that can levy unacceptable damage on their military power, is a no-no, and America has put them in the bullseye for overthrow, balkanization, and for war. I'm going to read a little bit more, and I'm going to bring Rashid in. It says, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said on Friday urged Tehran to reverse collaboration with Moscow. Now, listen to me good. Just a few months ago, he was urging Russia to reverse this collaboration with Iran. Now, he's urging Iran to reverse the collaboration with Russia. He didn't urge the White House to repeal or remove the illegal sanctions imposed upon Iran or Russia to do the right thing. He wants you to suffer. I'm telling you, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, does anybody ever just pay attention to what is being said and what the mind state of these people? I want you to break off your trade ties, your political ties, and your economic ties for hope that sometime in the future, when I may deem so, I might remove some of the sanctions, not all, some of the sanctions, and I may not bomb you. And if you don't do it, it is outright blasphemous to me. And how dare you make partnerships outside of my sanctions to skate around my sanctions? The mind of these people is unreal. And most people just on a daily basis just read the stuff and they just go about their business without analyzing the stuff that is being said to them. And let's go further. Russia is seeking to collaborate with Iran in areas like weapons development, training, Kirby told news reporters. Okay. In America, seeking to collaborate with European nations with in areas like weapons development and training. Didn't America do that in Ukraine? Didn't America do that in Georgia? Isn't America carrying out those things out in Israel and all of the other nations that she deem her partners? Well, why is that exclusive to America and no one else can do that? You know why? Because of the mind state of the people who run America. The exceptional mind state. I can and you can't. That's Nebuchadnezzar, isn't it? I am and there is none other. Look at what my hands have wrought, right? Let's go further. It says, Russia is offering Iran an unprecedented level of military and technical support that is transforming their relationship into a fully fledged defense partnership, he said. Stop right there. Whose fault is it? Whose fault is that? Is that Russia's fault? Is that Iran's fault? Or is it the nation that is continually provoking these nations through military provocations, sanctions, and political provocations? Is it the victim's fault? Or is the rapist at fault? Because the neighborhood now wants to get together and have an anti-rapist committee to deal with the rapist that is constantly going through the neighborhood, raping and pillaging. Huh? It goes further. We have also seen reports that Moscow and Tehran are considering the establishment of a joint production line for lethal drones in Russia. We urge Iran to reverse course and to not take these steps. Why? You do it you just said that you sent Reaper drones to Israel. You just said that you have just started a defense pact with Israel to build modern anti-missile ballistic defense systems. You just said that you are now upgrading Israel warplanes. Is anybody urging you to stop? The Palestinians have urged you to stop. And yet it falls on deaf ear. And now you want to urge people who are in the same boat and who are fighting the same enemy to stop being friends and lending aid to each other to rebuff any provocations by the empire. Man, you crazy as hell. I'm telling you, the mind state of these people. I'm going to bring Rashid in, and then I'm going to finish this article. I know he has something to say on this. Hold on one second. How's it going today, Rashid?
Greetings, Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me clear?
Yeah, I hear you very well. Go ahead.
It 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 goes back to, as we've been saying for a while, the empire and his minions consider themselves kings. I've been sitting on that throne for so long that I'm not in reality based thinking. I, I'm sitting up here so long and then got everything my way through this UN stuff that I don't respect nobody or anybody but myself. I am king. You not king. And if the king deems necessary that you gotta fall, you better do as I say. Ain't that's what he did throughout history? If a duke don't do what he says, I commit war on you. And my rules are not your rules. Right? Whatever I do is exceptional. What you do is an illegal legal crime. That's the reason why the Russia and the China been it's the old deal with the what's the old saying of the Middle East? The friend of my enemy is my enemy, is my friend, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
Russia and China, you better not do that. See, I control the UN because I set it up and I made it. And then all commerce goes through the UN, right? And if you don't do what I say, sanction you means that my money you can't use anymore. Well, anybody with a right thinking brain will say, well, I won't use your money no more. Then that's the big problem. Everybody else is getting clued in on this 3-card Molly scheme. And the rest of the people don't want to take it no more. So it's like he's freaking out. He sees his fall, like what the scriptures say, angels ascending and angels descending. And he's the one that's descending. And he can't handle it.
Yeah. It's driving them crazy. And I want you to listen to the next sentence in this article because it blows my mind, right? It says this, and for all of you who are listening to the show or watching the show, this is my first time reading this article too. I'm reading for the first time with you all. I've seen the article, but I never read it. And I just so happened to just look at it this morning right as the show started, and I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to show you the mind of lunatics. Because this is their thinking, that I can do everything that I want to do. I can raise hell, I can kill, I can pillage, I can steal, I can lie, I can cheat, I can do all of that. But don't you dare defend yourself against me pillaging and robbing and raping and lying to you. Because if you do that, that's a crime against humanity. Even though I'm the one killing, raping, and robbing and stealing. And this is the point that most people don't like, because this pill is too hard to swallow, because most people in the West think of themselves as morally and ethically superior to other people, when in reality, morality and ethics in the West is so low that it's lower than a bow-legged centipede. I want you to listen to this next verse in this article. It says, first I'll read the one I just read, then I'll go into the next verse. It says, Russia is offering Iran an unprecedented level of military and technical support that is transforming their relationship into a fully fledged defense partnership. He added, we have also seen reports that Moscow and Tehran are considering the establishment of a joint production line for the lethal drones in Russia. We urge Iran to reverse course and not take these steps, he continued. Kirby went on to say that the United States would sanction. Kirby went on to say that the United States would sanction 3 Russian-based entities active in the acquisition and use of Iranian drones. Stop right there. Now, what is Einstein? What is attributed to Einstein? What do they say? Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is deemed what? Insanity, right? Well, they just, at the beginning of the article, they just lamented pushing these two together through sanctions, right? And now they're saying, well, if they don't, we'll sanction them again. Do you see the insanity in their thinking? They don't sit down and just go over their policies. These people double and quadruple down on failed policies. And now the world is waking up to that. And the only thing that America has left is the threat of war. But the risks are so high now because the level of military progress of these nations that she now threatens is amazing. And so she risks receiving unacceptable damage in a conventional war. So therefore, she hangs over the head of these nations, as Joe Biden did when he came into office, and then he reiterated just a few months ago, that now America has changed her nuclear doctrine, that America would not no longer wait for a nuclear strike for retaliation. America has deemed that she can use nuclear weapons on the battlefield. She can use nuclear weapons against nuclear states that are not threatening her with nuclear weapons, and she can use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states. See, she's boxed into a corner now with her trump card, her ace. Now is the threat of all-out nuclear war because her policies have pushed her in that corner. You see, and let's go a little further. It says, he named the Russian aerospace force and the 924th State Central Unmanned Aviation of the Russian Defense Ministry as two of the organizations, but did not name the third. Tehran has multiple times rejected in the strongest terms the Western claims of Iran's delivery of weapons and drones to Russia. I want to stop right there. Because I want to go back to something. Wasn't it just last year and the year before last? Correct me, Rashid, if I'm wrong. Wasn't it just last year and the year before last and the year before that and the year before that, and especially when Donald Trump was president, that they mocked Iran's weapons capabilities? That they mocked Iran's declarations that they have now the capability to create modern weapons? What? Is that not right? So if the U.S. intelligence and the former U.S. president says that these are old weapons based off of American weapons and French weapons, well, if that is the case, then why is America worried? Either she's lying on this hand or she's lying on this hand. But somewhere in between, a lie is being told. See, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not the butter knife either. And you can't tell me that it's raining just because you're standing up on the second floor and you're peeing out the window. Investigation is due. So how is it on one hand that Iran is a third world nation and Iran does not have modern defense capabilities, and on the other hand, you're saying that Russia is getting aid from Iran, but on the other hand of that, you have told us that it is Russia that is helping Iran. You make that make sense, Rashid?
It don't make sense. Once again, the empire, the leadership is not dealing in reality. They're madmen and women. Their whole thing is, I see my rule on down, and I'm willing to burn down the house because I can't rule. I'll give you a perfect example of it. We see, just like with this election stuff that the white man had, right? If I win, it's legitimate. But if you win, it's not legitimate.
Yeah.
That's the way he thinks. I go and do things I want because it's me. What do they call the divine right of kings?
Yeah.
Like I'm saying before, I'm a king and I have the right to do anything I want. That right, I can come over here and
So now we're sitting and messing with Rashid's
uh,
microphone.
with
Go ahead.
the internet,
Repeat what you said.
freezing up
Repeat
the
the
internet when
last
you get to
minute
talking
of what
about
you said. Repeat it,
America.
Rashid. Repeat the
Evidently,
last minute of what
somebody
you
don't
said. They
like the
were messing
truth
with
to
your
be told
microphone.
among them.
Did you hear me? Repeat the last minute of what you said. They were messing with your microphone. I guess now they're bothering. I think they're bothering again.
Yeah, your screen is going out too.
Yeah. Well,
once again, once you start telling the truth, the empire starts. It hurts the guilty. Always remember that.
yeah.
The truth hurts the guilty. If what we are saying is wrong, then why do this? Right?
Right.
If we are nobody and what we're saying does not hurt this great empire, why get upset? The truth hurts the guilty. They are guilty of all of the crimes on the planet. All trouble around the planet Earth can be laid at the feet of England and America. And the rest of the world is waking up to this. That's the reason why the rest of the world should have did this long time ago. How this cat has been bullying and everybody around the planet. And the smart thing to do is to think about it and say, well, how can I stop this bully? Let's get together. And if he can't come and bully me, and he can't come and bully you, and can't come and bully that other guy over there, then his bully methods end. That's what they should have done. Right?
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking as you were talking, I was thinking about how America always does the switcheroo on the people. Like, think about this. All under Trump's administration, they were talking about investing $10 trillion. Do you remember that? And upgrading and adding to America's nuclear arsenal. Remember that? I know you remember that. That's what they were talking. $10 trillion over 10 years. 10 trillion. Listen to me. I didn't say 100 billion. I didn't say 500 million. I didn't even say a trillion. They were talking about $10 trillion invested in the nuclear weapons a part of the United States in order to maintain a credible nuclear arsenal. And the reason I brought that up is because as Rashid was talking, I was scanning the news and I saw this article right here. It says Pentagon chief. And then after that, it says Russia modernizing and expanding its nuclear arsenal. Now, I want you to understand something. When America tells you, or when the media tells you something about someone else, a lot of times it's projection. Or if they're describing a situation, they often leave out the hidden hand behind the chaos. They don't tell you that Russia for years had been asking America, let's just pull out of these former Soviet territories and go back to this line of contact that we agreed upon. You moved forward because you saw us in a weakened state and you just ignored us. This is going to force us to double down on our weapon systems and stuff. This will push us into this place. Now that we're at this place here, America has amnesia or Alzheimer's, convenient Alzheimer's or amnesia, where she disconnects her hand, Britain's hand, and NATO's hand from the buildup, the military buildup of these nations, the economic buildup of these nations, and the rejection of the rules-based, so quote unquote, world order. She conveniently leaves out what led to these points. I'm gonna read something. In this article, it says, now mind you, I'm reading for the first time with you all, okay? U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said Russia is modernizing and expanding its nuclear arsenal, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has indicated that Moscow could use nukes to protect its territory. Stop right there. America has indicated the same thing. But if you just look at that, you would think that Vladimir Putin is irrational. When America specifically changed her military doctrine and stated openly that now she could use nuclear weapons on the battlefield in the form of tactical nuclear weapons, or she can launch her first strike on nations whom she deems as threats. And she also reserves the right to use nuclear weapons on non-nuclear states. So when we're reading this, let us not forget that part of that, okay? And it goes further and says, President Joe Biden has warned of the risk of nuclear Armageddon amid a persistent U.S. campaign accusing Moscow of planning to use nukes against Ukraine. The Pentagon chief made the remarks on Friday at a ceremony for the new head of the U.S. Strategic Command, or STRATCOM, Anthony Cotton. The agency is in charge of strategic nuclear deterrence, nuclear operations, and missile defense. Austin said STRATCOM would face several challenges. Listen to this good. Now, this is the U.S. War Secretary, because there's nothing defensible about the policies that America carries out around the globe. All of this is offensive. America is expanding her bases, refusing to leave nations that want her out. And let me put this in your mind. Do you know for the last, well, I know at least 10 years, that there has been demonstrations every single day against America's occupation of Okinawa? Do you know that? Do you know that there have been protests every single day for at least 8 years in Korea about America's military presence there and her bases? Do you know that? You would not know that because the MSN does not show you, and it is blocked out of Western media. So listen, let's go further. It says, Austin said STRATCOM would face several challenges in the near future, not far off in the future, but the near future, including the expanding Russian nuclear arsenal and Chinese nuclear forces that are growing, modernizing, and diversifying. And as the Kremlin continues, listen to this part, quote unquote, and as the Kremlin continues its cruel and unprovoked war of choice against Ukraine, the whole world has seen Putin engaged in deeply irresponsible nuclear saber rattling. Now, these are lies, and what's on my mind is this. These people think that they can lie enough and say something that is irrational, illogical, unethical, and immoral over and over and over and over again. And the populace is too dumb to take them to task on those statements. So they continue to take it, and the ignorance of most of the people accept it to be true. This, whether they know this or not, the more you dumb down your society, the greater chance for a societal collapse. Now, they said, I got to read this part again because I'm going to play something, and it's about 7 minutes. So I want you all to pay attention when I play this, okay? Because this goes hand in hand with what he's saying. I knew I downloaded this for some reason. I kept saying, I'm going to download certain clips just in case I get on something like this and I can play it for you. It says, let me read that again. This is the War Secretary of the U.S. As the Kremlin continues its cruel and unprovoked, keyword unprovoked, war of choice, another keyword of choice, like Russia just wanted to do this against Ukraine. The whole world has seen Putin engage in deeply irresponsible nuclear saber rattling, which that is a lie also. But I want to take you back, since we're on this subject. Like the song said, I want to take you back in time, back in the days prior to the war in Ukraine. I want to take you back and let you listen to Putin trying to rationalize or trying to be rational with irrational people. I want you to listen to Vladimir Putin get questioned by a reporter of the West, and he answers everything, and he tells you, listen, you're forcing us to do this. Would you please just stop and listen to us? We don't want a war with you. We don't want to be forced into Ukraine. We want you to honor your agreements that you made with us. Because if you don't, we're going to be forced to take military action. Now, see, this gets left out, the MSN. The MSM, they just leave this out. But not the Red Pill Diaries and the Red Pill Journal. We're going to play this clip for you, and I want you to pay close attention. But before I play the clip, I don't want to, you know, the YouTube algorithm, any reason to suspend us again or to block us again. Okay, let's see. Let me find the disclaimer. Let me put the disclaimer up, and then we'll go to the clip. Hold on one second. Now we have the disclaimer up. Okay, so now we're going to play this clip. This is a live conference of when Vladimir Putin was meeting with. He was given a question and answers from all of them. This wasn't scripted. It wasn't censored or anything. He allowed all Western media to come and ask him questions. This is prior to the war in Ukraine. Okay, and I want you to pay close attention to what is being said and how passionate Mr. Putin is on the security, his responsibility for the security of his nation. And he points out Western contradiction and hypocrisy and lies in this, and no one challenges them on it. So I want you to pay close attention. This is about 7 minutes. Please listen to this.
You have talked a lot about security guarantees, and now we've seen your proposals. You also say you have no intention of invading Ukraine. So will you guarantee unconditionally that you will not invade Ukraine or any other sovereign country, or does that depend on how negotiations go? And another question, what is it, do you think, that the West does not understand about Russia or about your intentions? Thank you.
Speaking of the security guarantees and what it will depend upon, or if something will depend upon the negotiations, our actions will not depend on the negotiation. They will depend on the unconditional compliance with the Russian security demands today and in the historical context. In this sense, we have made it clear that any further NATO movement to the east is unacceptable. There is nothing unclear about this. We are not deploying our missiles over at the borders of the US. No. On the other hand, the US is deploying its missiles close to our home, on the porch of our house. So, are we demanding something excessive? We're simply asking them not to deploy their attack systems over at our home. What is so unusual or peculiar about that? So, what would the Americans think if we, for example, decided to come to the border between, say, Canada and the United States or Mexico and simply deploy our missiles over there? Well, did Mexico and the US never have any territorial disputes? What about California? What about Texas? Did you forget about that? But everything seems to have calmed down. Nobody remembers those things, just like the way they remember about Crimea. We try not to remember the situation in Ukraine. Who created that? Who started the crisis? Was that Lenin? Yes, when he declared the Soviet Union in 1922 and then the Constitution of 1924 following his death, was following the principles of Lenin. This is a matter of security, not just history. This is about security. It is not the negotiations that matter. It is the outcome, the result. I've reiterated this many times, and you're well aware that we said not an inch to the east. That was the NATO guarantee in 1990. So what became of that? They fooled us. We've seen 5 waves of NATO expansion. Now they're in Romania and in Poland. and they're deploying the relevant attack systems over there. That's what we're talking about. You should finally understand we're not threatening anyone. We did not come to the US borders or to the UK borders. No. They came to our borders, and now they're saying that Ukraine will also join NATO and they will deploy their systems there. Or not just NATO, they will simply deploy it on a bilateral basis. They will deploy their military bases and their attack systems. That's what we're talking about. And you keep demanding some guarantees from us. You must give us the guarantees. It is up to you, and you must do this immediately, right now, instead of keep talking about this for decades. And use this small talk and soft talk about the need for guarantees of security for everyone. This is exactly what we mean. We are not threatening anybody. And now to the second part of your question. Could you repeat that, please?
What is it that you think that the West does not understand about
okay.
Russia or about your intentions?
Ну, знаете что?
Yes, exactly. Well, you know, what you understand or what you don't understand, sometimes it seems to me that we live in two different worlds. I was speaking about very obvious things. How can you not understand that? You say you will not expand, and then you keep expanding. You say we will have equal guarantees for everyone on a number of international agreements, and then we see there is no equality or no equal security. See, here's the thing. Back in 1918, one of the assistants of Woodrow Wilson, the US president, said that the whole world would feel calmer and safer if today's enormous Russia would be replaced with the states of Siberia and 4 more states in the European part of Russia. That was said in 1918, and in 1991 we separated into 12 separate parts. It seems to me that our partners were not satisfied with that. They think that Russia is a tad too large. Even the European countries have turned themselves into a union of states. They are quite small states with populations of 60 to 80 million people, but even after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, we only had 146 million people, and that is too much for the West. I think that is the only explanation for their constant pressure against us. Back in the 1990s, the Soviet Union did everything it could to build normal relations with the West, with the United States. I will keep saying this, and I will repeat for your viewers and listeners out there from the media that you represent. I didn't quite get that, but that doesn't matter. Our nuclear sites, our military nuclear sites, had experts from the US intelligence authorities. They were going there. That was their job, to visit the Russian military nuclear sites. They spent their whole days over there. And the Russian government had advisors from the CIA working inside of it. What else did you need? Why did you have to support the terrorists in Northern Caucasus and use the terrorist organizations to reach your goals and break down the Russian Federation? This was exactly what you were doing, and as a former director of the FSB, I know that. We were working with the double agents, and they were reporting to us on the tasks of the Western intelligence agencies. Why did you have to do that? You should have done something different, perhaps treat Russia as a possible ally and strengthen trust. But no, instead you tried to keep breaking us up. And then you started the NATO expansion to the east. We were saying, don't do that. You had promised you wouldn't. And they say, where is it put in written form? Nowhere. Well, then F off, and we don't care about your concerns. And every time we kept responding and trying to make obstacles, we were expressing our concerns about that. But they say no. So you can do whatever you want about your concerns. We will do whatever we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We witnessed 5 waves of NATO expansion. Why can't they understand? What is unclear? I believe everything is clear. We are thinking about our own security.
So now, let me see. Russia, I had to add him back to the stream. He's back to the stream. But check this out. I want to continue along this line. We're gonna talk about other nations and everything else, but I want to continue along this line for a minute because I want to show you how the Western world is just waging war on everybody. Now, I want you to think about this. Russia is the largest nuclear power on the planet Earth. She has 6,000 active nuclear weapons with a. So, with that being said, if America continues to provoke Russia, that can lead to nuclear war, right? So, and America continues to do so. So, if she does that with a nation that has the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth, what do you think that she's doing to nations that have a lesser nuclear arsenal or nations that have no nuclear weapons? This is what I'm saying to you. I want to bring something up because on there, Vladimir Putin talked about America's plan to balkanize Russia. I want to bring something good here. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me bring it up 1 second. Let's see. Here we are, right here. Yeah, there we are. Give it 1 second. Here we are. It should be popping up. And I don't know what's going on with the screen. So guys, please forgive us if we're losing. We have good connection. I don't know why they continue to. Hopefully it'll come up on the screen. We think that this is StreamYard. I don't want to put this on YouTube on this. We'll add this to the screen. It says it's added, but it's not up there. Here it is. Finally, I'm telling you, man, they mess with this show constantly. If you look right here, right to our left, I believe, but I mean our right, but to your left, I don't know, because it's backwards on our screen. But you'll see Vladimir Putin in the front, and you'll see Joe Biden in the back, and then you'll see some countries right there. That was planned to be balkanized and broken up into those countries right there. There was, when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, she said that it was not fair for Russia to be so big and to have so much land and to have so much resources that it should be balkanized and broken up into other countries, and the West should be able to get those resources. I mean, a bold statement to openly say that against your number one nemesis, who has the power to annihilate you, to say, look, it's unfair. We need to balkanize Russia. So in this article that I was reading prior to the video that you saw, which proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was not an unprovoked war, that prior to the war, Putin was adamant. Look, man, let us talk. How about you honor the stuff? Look, we're not gonna go another 10 years with this talking. We've been talking and talking and talking, and every time we talk, you stab us in the back. Our national security will not be predicated on what you say over here. Either you give us the security agreements and you give them to us now, or we will be forced to take security arrangements into our own hand. You saw it for yourself. This was prior to the Ukrainian military operation. So that makes Lord Austin, who is the war secretary of the United States, an open liar when he says, as the Kremlin continues its cruel and unprovoked war of choice against Ukraine, the whole world has seen Putin engage in deeply irresponsible nuclear saber rattling, right? Now, let us see who the world blames for this, okay? We're going to go to South Africa for 30 seconds, all right? And we're going to see who Ramaphosa, the president of Africa, blamed. Now, remember, when he said this, he had already talked to his African compatriots across the whole of Africa. So what he's doing, because South Africa is rising as a global power, what he is doing is conveying the sentiments across the continent of Africa. Okay? So let's see who Africa blames for this thing. Because remember that Africa is suffering the blowback effect of all of these weapons being smuggled into Ukraine, and all of these Western produced jihadis are being flooded into the Sahel and North Africa through the French, the British, the Canadians, the Germans, the Italians, the Swedes, the Finnish, and the Americans. So let us not forget this as we talk about this. So listen to what Ramaphosa has to say about who's the root cause of these wars and this particular one.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday blamed NATO for the war in Ukraine and said he would resist calls to condemn Russia.
The war could have been avoided if NATO had heeded the warnings from amongst its own leaders and officials over the years that its eastward expansion would lead to greater, not less, instability in the region.
Now let's hear that one more time for the people who are deaf or the people who can't hardly hear. Let's hear that one more time, because America is saying the whole world is against Russia, and the whole world knows that Russia started this. But let us look again.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday blamed NATO for the war in Ukraine and said he would resist calls to condemn Russia.
The war could have been avoided if NATO had heeded the warnings from amongst its own leaders and officials over the years that its eastward expansion would lead to greater, not less, instability in the region.
So the world is awakening to the reality of the great destabilizer, the great war maker, the bloodshedder, the Western world, America, the UK. And remember that wherever America is involved, you can bet your bottom dollar that the UK is involved right with them. These are the two daughters of Babylon, and they are hand and hook, hip and hook together as they gallop around the world trying to force people to their dictates, and they're trying to force people to dance to their rules. And if you don't dance to their rules, they destabilize you, they assassinate the character of the people, they physically assassinate leaders, they overthrow governments. If that doesn't work, they sanction them. And if that doesn't work, then they go in and bomb the institutions that make the nation viable, causing chaos to reign supreme. Then they, after bombing them and destroying the government institutions, go before the media and say, it's time. We need to send in a UN-backed force, and we need to go in there to prevent killing. When you've killed thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people, and you put yourself in that position so that you can go in there and steal the resources. Man, they got the same playbook over and over and over again. And the only thing that has kept them at bay from North Korea is North Korea's military might, and that China will not allow America to take North Korea, because then China would be completely surrounded. America would have South Korea, North Korea, Japan, and she would have some of those little basins that she has, like in Singapore and the Philippines and stuff like that. China would be completely surrounded. And that is one reason why China would never allow America to North Korea. And one of the reasons that America wants North Korea so bad is because they did a geological survey, and they found, we already know that China controls 90% of all of the rare earth minerals, period. I mean, they control 90% or more. Well, they found that North Korea holds a huge untapped volume of untapped rare earths. They use this in everything from computers to microchips to warplanes to bombs and everything. North Korea holds a huge amount of untapped rare earths, and they hold a huge amount of unmined gold, silver, and other minerals. This is why North Korea is really under America's hair, because South Korea does not hold the mineral resources that North Korea holds. And a lot of people don't know that. Rashid, I'm gonna let you chime in a second. Then I'm gonna double back on what Ramaphosa says. Go ahead.
Goes back to what we were. America thinks she's king. Everybody else is her subjects. Further, what he was saying, that they don't respect him. When has anybody respected anybody's laws? When she stole America and got this country, they made a whole lot of treaties. Did they respect any treaty that America, that the Indian nations had? They respect not one. Broke every last treaty. Why do you think he gonna all of a sudden start living up to his word? Say out of since America been a country, she done had war all but 9 of the years. She cannot change her spots. And what she get mad is everybody, the emperor has no clothes and everybody looking at her naked. And she losing her mind. As you were saying before about these the bigger lies. Isn't that what Goebbels said? The bigger the lie, the more people will believe in it, and keep saying it over and over and over. It's a fantastic lie. Just keep saying it, and the rest of the suckers will come along and believe it, right? Well, isn't that what she's doing now? No matter, even if she lying and everybody knows she lying, she keep doing it over and over. And she's supposed to be against it. She was supposed to be against the Nazis, right? Well, why is she using a playbook?
That's right.
Remember, the truth, her guilty. And who's more guilty than America?
Right. That's right.
Why get upset with the truth?
I'm going to pull some up.
She is
Keep
a
talking.
liar. She is a liar, and she cannot herself. Even to what Russia? Who is the one that made all these countries to get all of this land? God didn't make it that way. The people of Europe came out of Europe and stole everything from everybody else. If you say anything, I'll kill every last one of you. And then run around hollering about, I'm a Christian nation. Once again, would Jesus be involved in anything like that? And he didn't stir up any trouble.
Well,
Jesus didn't start
for those
trouble.
That's right. That's right.
So what? Show me any. Not one thing that Jesus taught they live up to.
Right.
But the scriptures talk about people that would be claiming to be of God and far from it.
Yeah. And this also says that in the end they're gonna claim Jesus. He's gonna say, "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity, for I know you not." So, for those of you who don't understand what we're trying to show you, we're trying to show you the hypocrisy of the West. We're trying to show you the bloodletting, the bloodlust of the West. If you look on the screen right now, you'll see a graph up there. And it says, since the United States of America was founded in 1776, this country has been in war for 222 years. That is the 93% of its time since its existence. Only 21 years were peaceful. I didn't make this up. This is here. Listen, since the United States of America was founded in 1776, this country has been in a war for 222 years. That is, the 93% of its time in its existence, only 21 years were peaceful. I didn't make that up. I did not make that up. It's right here on your screen for you to see. So we're not lying. We're bringing out the truth that other people simply refuse to talk about, willingly omit, or themselves are ignorant to. So you cannot hope for peace when a person has shown you who they are. There's an old saying on the streets that says, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. You remember that? But most people only take that in relationship terms. But in reality, when a person or a nation or a people show you who they are, believe them. If you don't believe them, it is to your detriment, right? So, again, why is America waging these wars nowadays? And why does she have Russia and China and even Iran in the crosshairs? Huh? I bet you didn't. Most people don't even know this. Let me bring this fact up. Something major took place. This was a game-changing event that took place over the last few years. And this has really worried the War Department of America, the so-called diplomatic Secretary of State and its part of the government, and the president and the Congress. This has really bothered them. Not only has it bothered them, but it has people in the halls of Brussels and in the halls of London and Paris doing a double take, because there was a great paradigm shift that took place over these last few days. While the world was watching Ukraine, the nation of Egypt, the Egyptian government and the nation of Egypt started to forge their own economic and political path. What am I saying? There was an old saying by Richard Nixon that they have to keep Egypt. Egypt is the cornerstone of American plans for dominance in the Middle East and to preserve Israel as a viable nation. Richard Nixon knew that. He talked about that. His policy team talked about that. He said, if we lose Egypt, right, Rashid, what did he say? If we lose Egypt, what would happen?
Israel is gone.
Okay.
Those 260 million Arabs will, over time, push Israel out. If you lose Egypt, Israel is gone. He also said there can be no war without Egypt.
So now, back to what I was saying. The United States, Great Britain, France, the people in Tel Aviv, all of them are very worried about the path charted by the Egyptian government and the nation of Egypt. Over the last few days, Egypt was admitted into the BRICS bank grouping. And now they have fully applied to be members, associate members of the BRICS, the BRICS. That is an organization of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and their allies. This is strategic. This is major because with Egypt being a part of the BRICS banks organization, that means that they can receive monetary funding in times of need, infrastructure building, investment in the economy outside of the U.S.-led and U.S.-dominated World Bank and the IMF. That means that America's leverage on Egypt is being chipped away economically. And without the economic hammer to lay over Egypt, Egypt can turn and move eastward. And this is making the United States and the rest of the world go insane about this. And I'm saying this is America sees China and Russia as the linchpin for this. So therefore, they are going on the attack and provoking these nations. As a matter of fact, they feel that if they can weaken Russia and then turn their eyes to China and try to confront China, because they only have a certain amount of time to confront China, according to all of their analysts. that if they do not confront China or force China into a war in the next few months, they will lose military advantage over China forever. So this is why you see the seesawing between Russia and China. And this is why you saw one congressman say last week that we should redirect all money, all funds, all weapons from Ukraine to Taiwan, because Taiwan is more of a national security issue to us. How is that? Because he understands that without Taiwan as a barrier, and without America having Taiwan as that insulator to keep the Chinese Navy pushed in, America loses all relevance of military dominance over China. So they move against these nations individually, but what they're really trying to do is prevent the rise of BRICS. I'm gonna play something for you, because this is actually challenging the dollar. So pay close attention to this.
Weapon to whip all those that do not comply with whatever it wants them to comply with.
And when we look at the state of the US at the moment, and we talk about the US economy, and perhaps, Prof, you want to come in and also weigh in on this, with having the US as a reserve currency, and the threats and the talk of a recession and then a depression, and having the US currency as that reserve, what implications are there? Let's talk about that now.
Lian and the viewers, good morning, and thanks, Rich, for laying that foundation. Let me politicize a bit, or put it in football terms as it were. A reserve currency underwrites state sovereignty. So there is usually a link between failed states and a currency. You tend to find states that are failed having no currency at all. So this is why there is so much talk, so much attention, and so much hype about this reserve currency, because there is a direct link between state sovereignty and a currency. In this case, the sovereignty of the global south, underwritten by the BRICS countries. Secondly, Lian, we are witnessing a new international financial order in the making. Whether we like it or not, there is a new financial order that is being developed as an alternative to the dollar-euro dominated international financial order, mainly because of what Reggie said, which is the abuse of the current system by the United States and its allies. Thirdly, allow me to observe that you cannot separate money from war. The two are interlinked, because the most profitable business in the world is a war. There is no war in history that has made a loss. This is why Cicero said, money is the soul of the war. So if all wars are profitable, then we can trace the rise of not only reserve currencies, but currencies themselves to war. When the Massachusetts Bay Colony printed the first banknotes in the United States way back in 1690, it was to fund its military operations. Again, in 1914, when the First World War, the so-called First World War ended, that is when we saw the rise of the United States dollar as the global reserve currency, courtesy of the meeting that occurred at the Bretton Woods institutions. So we see a direct link between war and currencies. So what are the implications for the United States if I now go back to your question? Firstly, there is going to be inflation at home. Inflation is going to visit the United States of America. Secondly, the United States is now going to fight in many fronts, because remember, there is already a challenge that is coming from digital currencies such as blockchain technologies as an alternative to the US dollar hegemony. So now it is going to be fighting on two fronts. Thirdly, the de-dollarization, this process that is happening, will expose the reality that the gold that is presumed to be in Fort Knox is not there. And finally, the US veto at the IMF and the World Bank will become obsolete.
So what we're seeing here, and I see the knock Rashid off the screen again. But what we're seeing here is this, and let me be blunt about it. They're talking about the BRICS and the rise of the BRICS Bank and how it's starting to be an alternative to the so-called rules-based order. And with that, he was talking about America being challenged on multiple fronts because now these nations are uniting outside of the dollar and doing trade. And this means that America will be visited by inflation. I've been saying that forever. When the inflation comes home, when the flood of dollars come back home, it will cause a tsunami in interest, like interest rate spike. And this will cause hyperinflation or 100% inflation. Okay. This means that the dollar will be worth way less and food and everything will go way up. So we're looking at that. And he also said that this America is fighting on multiple fronts. And one of the main things she's waging these wars about is that she's trying to hide the fact, because when this come on, there's no gold in Fort Knox. We've been telling you these things and telling you these things. And without gold, how can you stabilize your currency in the midst of a free fall? If there's a downward spiral, how can you stabilize your currency in the midst of a free fall? Go ahead. I know you have something to say. Go ahead, real
quick. Jim Willie, what do they call his name? The Joe Golden Jacket. These economic gurus. What did he say? They was asking him. He said there's no gold in Fort Knox. He said we got a couple of buckets of gold coins over there somewhere. That's about all they got. A couple of buckets of gold. And probably don't even have that. That is tungsten.
Right. And and I'm glad you brought. So I have to say this to the people. Also, I want you to Google something. For those of you who are listening, it may take a little ingenuity or creativity. I can't remember what I used to Google exactly to get this, but Google China, Google UK, US using tungsten instead of gold or something like that. The US and the UK they were caught settling debt, because banks settle debt in gold, bank to bank. And they were caught using pallets of tungsten. Tungsten is a material that looks like gold. It has the density of gold, but it is not valued like gold. And what they were doing, they were putting slivers of gold in the bars, and they were covering the bars, melting it with tungsten. And one guy said, hold on, let me see. When they brought the pallets to, he said, hold on, and he took a drill through it, and they did a analysis on it, and they found out that this tungsten and this gold originated in the UK and in the US. They were trying to blame China for it, and China was like, we had nothing to do with that. And so when they analysis on it, they realized that it originated in the US and in the UK. So the US and the UK had been settling their debts with nations with tungsten, a gold-like substance. This is real. But again, I want to go to something.
It shows you that the United States and Britain are Barnum and Bailey. Forever showman. Never nothing of substance, right? The third Molly. Which P? What has the P? Way is in his hand. It's not in either one of the shells. That's exactly way. That's the use Donald Trump of being a grifter, but this is the grifter country. Lies, the slighting, the misdirection, everything but what's the truth, right?
Yeah.
That's all they know how to do. A military expert said, they're trying to defend all of these countries. If a country is trying to defend all of these different places, he really defends nowhere. That's what's happening with America. She got all of her bases looking at everybody. Anybody that stand on two men standing on the street corner, she want to know she got to know everything everybody doing. but it's up. They've been exposed. The emperor has no clothes, and the rest of the countries are moving away from him. That is the reason why you see all of this trouble, and all of the stuff that you read shows that the jig is up. She's been exposed.
Right. Yeah. And so, and I want you to, I'm gonna go back to a couple of clips that we played on a previous show. I think we played them on a previous show because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. And then we're going to try to play a few more clips before we end the show. We're going to go on a little bit longer. Please give us your attention just a little bit longer. We thank you for being with us for over an hour, almost an hour and a half. And but it's so much to unpack. And no one is talking about these issues. You can go to any other platform. They may touch a little bit, but they don't delve into it. They don't dive deep into this stuff. They don't tell you the reality of the situation in depth. And this is something that we pride ourselves in, to go in depth on this stuff and not just give you the surface part of it. So I want you to go back to something that I said about America's attacking or trying to attack China and Russia. And I talked about a paradigm shift taking place with Egypt, how Egypt has joined the BRICS Bank and has submitted a form to join the BRICS organization. Also, I want you to think about Africa. Remember, we played Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, and how he clearly and put the blame squarely on the United States and NATO for this conflict, for this confrontation, and how the destabilizing of the world is on the back of their irrational, arrogant policies, okay? So I want to go back to something. While everybody's screaming about Ukraine and everybody's talking about the loss of life in Ukraine, and this is a 24/7, even on Facebook, when you get on there, they have the Ukrainian flag. You can put it as your picture. Everywhere you go, I was driving down the street the other day. I saw some people with the Ukrainian flag on the back of their car. Now, here's something to it. So as we pulled over at one of the stores, I noticed this lady and this guy, I guess they were a couple. They were talking to me, and they had the Ukrainian flag on them, and they were talking. And me, just being me, I was like, what flag is that? Oh, that's the Ukrainian flag. We support Ukraine. I said, do you know where Ukraine is at? Yeah, yes. I said, where is it? You know, I'm acting dumb. Yeah, it's up there between Africa and Europe. I'm like, listen to me good. It's up there between Africa and Europe. But you're supporting Ukraine. You don't know where it's at, but it's up there between Africa and Europe. Man, if you don't get out of here with that foolishness. But I want you to understand something. While America is crying and moaning and dancing and jumping up and screaming to the highest of their lung capacity, and so is Great Britain, and so is France, about Russia must remove all troops out of Ukraine. Russia must stop this and leave Ukraine to go for itself, and it has the undeniable and inalienable right to choose its own future and path. And you see this on the MSM, and you see this on every news network, and not one of them has said a thing about France denying African nations their sovereign right to choose. France refusing, not just France, but NATO refusing to remove their troops from Africa. See, this is what I'm saying. This is a global war, and notice everywhere the wars are taking place, and everywhere that the United States and France and Germany and Canada and England and all of the former colonial nations are deploying, or resource-rich areas, or areas of strategic trade importance. Okay, always keep that in mind as we look at this.
France insists it will keep social or special forces in Burkina Faso to fight terrorism, despite growing fatigue among locals about the continued military presence of the former colonial power.
We all have an interest in Burkina remaining standing for the whole region. As long as the Burkinabe authorities wish, France remains a partner of Burkina Faso.
Last month, angry protesters in Burkina Faso attempted to storm the French embassy in the national capital. Locals have accused Paris of being at the root of Burkina Faso's problems, in particular failing to help deal with a rising insurgency. Protesters have demanded that the French ambassador be expelled. Police fired tear gas to disperse the crowds as demonstrators threw stones and set fires outside the compound. Several Western African countries have been looking to form their own collective military force under the so-called Accra Initiative to combat terrorist groups. Burkina Faso has already received 2,000 troops from neighboring countries, including Ivory Coast, Niger and Ghana, to fight against the insurgency. Last month, France officially ended its own 8-year military operation that had been tasked with eradicating terrorism in the region. A local reporter interviewed residents on what they think of these security issues.
It's a bit dubious. I'm skeptical because Burkina Faso is not the only country in an emergency situation. I think the initiative should come through the Economic Community of West African States, or it should concern all the countries affected by terrorism. France could be a shareholder of the Accra Initiative.
The French are going through all the means to take control, to dominate us, to present themselves as a guide and protector. They know that since Mali left the G5 Sahel, that group became nonsense. We no longer trust them. People now have eyes open, and if France doesn't change its way of dealing with people, with our states, I would say they are not welcome.
I think it's a good initiative. We feel a climate of solidarity between African countries. Thank God the initiative is coming from Ghana, and thank God Ghana is not a francophone country, so we can believe that France doesn't have a full control of Ghana and we don't have to worry.
It's a good initiative because we were told that if Africa wants to save itself, this has to be done by Africans first. Western countries are not done yet with Africa in the south of the Sahara. No doubt, they are going to explore many ways to recolonize their lost territories.
Over and over again by, come on, they got to stop this. They got to let us do our show. Hopefully, all right, there we are. Hopefully, we can continue to show that they're messing with everything. But I want to bring something up on our screen. Give me a second, because we're talking about France, and I want to show you something while they're screaming about Ukraine. Okay, and you know France is one of the loudest voices and talking about Putin must stop this stuff. Okay. But I want to show you something. I know perspective because nobody talks about this. And I'm going to tell you why nobody talks about this. Because they don't value lives that are not European as they value European lives. That's the bottom line. There's no other way around this. And you can say whatever you want to say, but this is the truth. Because they're not screaming about the situation in North Africa the way they're screaming about the situation in Ukraine. They're talking about Russia committing atrocities, so-called atrocities, right? And they're talking about what's going on in Ukraine. But I want you to see, look, it's right here. Mali official, and this is from a Malian official, French army trying to conceal mass graves. Okay? This is real. And a few months ago, and it says, in April, the Malian army reportedly discovered bodies buried near the former French military base in Gauzy. The French army is trying to hide the mass graves in Mali, for which it is responsible. Abu Bakr Siddiqui Fomba, a member of the National Transitional Council of Mali, told Sputnik, the French military lies, fabricates facts, Fomba said, adding that if there are mass graves, then they, the French military, are responsible for them. He also said that Malian authorities have launched an investigation into possible nuclear waste. So not only are they killing people that are protesting near the bases, the illegal bases, but they're dumping nuclear waste on Malian soil. Do you know that makes the area uninhabitable? And it goes further. And it says, The landlocked Western African nation of Mali renounced its military cooperation agreement with France on Monday, with ties between the two countries on the brink of over a mass grave discovered by Malian troops near a vacated French base that Paris claims was planted there by Russian mercenaries. Rashid, I know you got something to say about that. I know you got something to say about that. Now they're putting the mass grave. Now this is a French base, one of the illegal French outposts in Mali. And the Russian group, the Wagner group, didn't come in to years later, but they say that the Russians planted it there. Man, if you don't stop, go ahead.
It's the same thing all over again. What did we say earlier? 3-card Mali, right? Get your mind thinking of something else, and then he comes up and with his hidden hand and stabs you in the back. You can't say this is what they've been doing throughout history. Change. His fathers did it 500 years ago to steal all of this land and make himself rich. When the man come out of Europe, which was stole America, where was his riches at? It was nowhere. Before he stole South America, before he stole Australia, before he stole New Zealand, before he stole all of them countries in Africa, before he stole all of Asia. And now, like you said before, his fathers have set up on them a platform of murder, rape, robbing, and stealing. That's how he got to where he is now. What did the guy say in Europe? It's a garden, and everybody else is a jungle.
Don't say that. I'm about to play this stuff. I'm about to let them hear it. We read it, but I'm about to let them. I got the videos for it. You know, I got the stuff for it. So don't say it yet. I'm gonna chime in on it. But I wanna say this to you all. Every time the playing field is level, America starts invoking national security. Every time. And so that they can ban free trade. Now, they always talk about free trade until somebody gets on their level, then this becomes a national security threat. Now, this is the nation that spies on everybody in the world and uses all kinds of technological gadgets to listen, to look, and to smell around the world, because they got some planes that sniff nuclear material. So that's why I said and smell. So whenever the playing field gets leveled, they go into national security threat. So they want to ban TikTok, which is not American. Because why? Because TikTok overtook Facebook as the world's #1 social media platform. And guess what? TikTok is Chinese, not American. Every time something surpasses American or Western technology or Western leadership, they deem it as a national security threat because it is non-European or non-American. Do you not see the rate? What I'm trying to show you is the racism in this stuff. It goes through the tech industry and stuff. And then the media uses this stuff hook, line, and sinker. I'm gonna tell you what they did, and I'm gonna refresh from some of you all's memory. Remember back in the 80s, Japan was in the position that China is in today, right? Everything was coming out of Japan. Remember? All kind of TVs, radios, and everything. When the Japanese economy exploded and almost threatened to catch up with the United States economy, and when Japanese technology started to surpass the United States technology, what the United States and the Western nations did was blow up the Japanese economy because it was a non-Western economy. And they cannot allow for that to happen. It is almost unfathomable that you guys cannot see this stuff and that you fall hook, line, and sinker to the foolishness that they present before you. But I want to go to something, because in a minute, we're going to go to what Rashid said. But first, I want to finish down this line of this Ukraine is suffering. Now, mind you, Nobody else is suffering. Ukraine is suffering, and Russia must come out of Ukraine, even though parts of Ukraine is historically Russian, and even though those are Slavic nations which are thousands of miles away from the United States. The U.S. and NATO don't have to come out of Ukraine. Only Russia has to come out of Ukraine. America doesn't have to come out of Libya. America doesn't have to come out of Yemen. America doesn't have to come out of Syria or Iraq, even though the Iraqi government voted 3 times for the full removal of U.S. and allied bases and troops from that nation. They don't have to come out. The media forgets that. The media overlooks that. The media doesn't say anything about that. All they are concerned about is Ukraine. Why? Because Ukraine, as the media, the reporter said, are blonde head, blue eye. And that is one of the main reasons for that. But when it comes to Africa, there's a thing as NATO bombed the only viable plant in this. I think it was in Car. I think it was in the Central African Republic, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But this is a short clip. I'm going to play this and I'll be right back with you because we're going to delve into some more stuff. Okay?
Have doubts.
A parliamentary leader in the Central African Republic has said an explosive of NATO origin was used to attack a nationally significant textile factory. Authorities have accused an insurgent group of committing the overnight attack with an aircraft last week and have even suspected that NATO member state France could have been involved. The Central African country's government has said the factory is of national importance and the bombing was intended to damage the domestic economy. The leader of the lower house of parliament has condemned the attack and spoken out about the possibility of NATO being involved.
According to the information I've received, this was an M904 bomb, which is used by NATO countries. If indeed a NATO country dropped a bomb on this factory, which is of great importance for agriculture, for farmers who are engaged in cotton production in the Central African Republic, then their lives are in danger. It is unacceptable for any country to drop a bomb on a factory, the only such factory that we have in the CAR. If it really is a NATO country, then it is a shame for them, because NATO countries are developed countries.
So I want to put something over you before we go into the next one. If you check the beginning of the thing, they said it was the bomb was delivered by aircraft. They said that the West said that the terrorists did it. Okay, okay, you telling me that the ISIS has an Air Force and Air Force equipment?
Yeah, it's called. Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute. It's called the United States Air Force and the England,
NATO.
The UK Air Force. Yeah, they have the same. Yeah, they got an Air Force. They got an Air Force and a Navy.
And the bomb, after inspection, the bomb was a NATO bomb. And these bombs and how they deduced that France is the likely culprit is that the French air bases around that area are teeming with those exact bombs. Now they destroyed the one factory or hit the one factory that was of economic relevance for that nation because that nation was in support of Mali and the other nations, and all of them were saying, look, we want the French and the NATO presence out of Africa. So in spite, they went in there and bombed that to try to destroy the economy and to show them as a warning. Next time, it may not be the building, it may be the government. Nobody cries out French. Nobody says, we need France out of Car. We need France out of North Africa. Nobody says that. Go ahead.
Show me anywhere where America and NATO them left on their own. They don't leave. You got to throw them out. If it wasn't for the Vietnamese getting together and running them out of Vietnam, they still be in Vietnam. They don't leave. Once they conquer a land, they consider it their land. And then this is the kicker, right? The people fighting against America and the empire, they're the terrorists. You understand? How does that look? Here you are in America, you over there in Afghanistan bombing up them people and claiming that they're the terrorists.
Yes,
in
yes.
their own land.
And then he'll say this, hold up, and then he'll say this. America reserves the right to protect our troops at any cost. You're in those people's lands. So they don't have the right to defend their territory and their people, and you're illegally occupying their land and airspace. But
anyone that sits up and says that they are an American, you are part of this injustice around the world.
Yes, yes. And so
all Americans are supportive of their government.
Yeah, continue talking. I'm typing something. I'm responding to something.
They're supporters of their government. Their government is the government is a representative of the people. You don't see no mass demonstrations of America for her evils around the world. It's perfectly fine with the citizens of America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I want to go to something. I want to go back to something that we talked about on a previous show because I want to preface what I'm going to play with this. Okay. So we talked about what Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that was told directly to him from the European Union foreign minister and his delegate about how Africa belongs to them. And this is a blunt thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to play a clip first that goes along with this about Russia. Okay. And I want to play this clip. This clip is 2 minutes and 35 seconds. And after I play this clip, I'm going to reacquaint you with what was said to Sergei Lavrov. And after I reacquaint you with what was said to Sergei Lavrov, we're going to go further and show you the racist, the entrenched, ingrained, and inherent racist policy and mindset of the Western world. We're going to do that because nobody's showing it to you. Okay, they're doing, see, for them to show it to you, they won't get a lot of likes on their channels. They won't get a lot of views and a lot of listeners. But that was never what this was ever about. This was about to show you the truth, regardless of whom or what. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip here, and I want you to pay attention because right after that, we're going to come with something that I'm going to refresh your memory on. So,
because NATO countries are developed countries.
Meanwhile, U.S. authorities are considering condemning the Russian private security company Wagner as a terrorist group. That's despite the fact that the organization helped several African countries establish peace in the region. Wagner forces were officially requested in a number of African countries, including Mali and the Central African Republic. Officials from these countries have repeatedly stated the importance of the help of that Wagner group has provided in conflict-ridden regions. The Central African Republic's parliament leader once again explains the significance of Wagner's activities in his country.
People were killed here. The CAR's army couldn't cope with it. But now, thanks to the presence of our friends, the Russian army, the Rwandan army, the MINUSCA troops, we were able to achieve peace in the Central African Republic. I don't know the Wagner group. I only know that when our government signed an agreement with Russia, the Russian government provided us with these soldiers. I'm not trying to find out which group President Putin decided to send us to ensure security in the CAR. For us, it's just Russians who have arrived in the CAR.
We heard from a political and international relations expert who says the Western attitude to the Russian presence in Africa is driven by the West's desire to police the world.
No, the West is jealous because it is addicted to policing the world, to bulldozing, to force people to do what they want since time immemorial. And the world has changed. The world order has changed now. They cannot continue to keep the unipolar system of just doing what they want because God himself created us different. Why not work on the content of whatever that comes from any part of the country? Every country has its own values, but it cannot be uniform and it cannot be continuously be be policed or even bamboozled by the U.S. U.S. as a country of opportunity should consider thinking along the line of their citizens, not only those who are in Washington should consider. Otherwise, they are likely to create rebellion within within U.S. itself.
And see, the main thing is that America is mad that Russia is sending the Wagner group. And I'm not saying that they don't have no ulterior motives over there, but what I'm saying is they are helping out those nations over there, because what America, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and all of these other colonial powers do, they are used to threatening those nations and then bombing those nations or sending in military people in to assassinate or whatever. And now with the Russians protecting the government, to kill those Russians would mean war with the Russians. And this is what is enraging the West, because the West feels it's losing its grip. It's losing its mammary gland because it's been able to tease, to suck the life or the milk from Africa at no cost. And now the African nations are saying, no, the resources are ours. We want to forge our own path. We want to be sovereign nations. We want to be respected. We want to build our own economies the way we like, not under colonial rule, not under colonial dictates. And this is what's enraging Europe. This is what's enraging America. And this is why they have doubled down on the destabilization of Africa. Now let's go into the article, back to this article that we talked about with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of the Russian Federation. And it says, Lavrov says EU foreign policy head told him to stay out of our, quote unquote, Africa, as he denies Moscow's role in mercenaries invited to Mali. Now, as long as Great Britain and as long as America and France can send the French Foreign Legion and Blackwater and all of these other mercenary groups to Africa to assassinate, to pillage, to rob, to rape, to destabilize, it's okay. But when the African nations say that, well, right now we're not militarily as strong, so we need some help, bring some Chinese companies and bring some Russian companies in to first protect the government so that we can make sovereign decisions, and then reinforce by training our troops and then handing us viable weapons to rebuff any invasion. This has become an outrage to the West. It's an outrage for Russia to go into Ukraine, but it's not an outrage for the NATO and the US to ignore the sovereignty of African nations. That's not an outrage, huh? So let's go further. It says, with the terrorist fighting government of Mali in talks with a private Russian military firm, listen to this good. I want you to understand. And Rashid, I see you back in the booth. I guess they disconnected him, but I see him back in the booth, and I'll bring him in a second. Now, this is the same thing from the same guy, and I want you to understand just how important this is, because this guy who is saying these things, he is reflecting the thoughts and the inner discussions of the rest of the leaders of Europe. How do I know that? It's because he is the EU foreign policy chief. He is the equivalent to Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. And what Sergei Lavrov does is convey Russian thoughts to the people, Russian policy to the people. So if this guy here is the European Union foreign policy chief, he is doing the same thing. He is in the same capacity as the Russian foreign minister with Sergei Lavrov. Is that not right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to deduce this. Okay. It says, with the terrorist fighting government of Mali in talks with a private Russian military firm, EU foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell told Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov to bluntly stay out of Africa, allegedly calling it our place. Isn't that something? This is the same guy I want to bring you back. This is the same guy that called Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East a jungle. and Europe is the garden. And the gardeners must go to the jungle to keep the uncivilized out of the garden. This is the same guy. So, knowing that, there was a discussion. As a matter of fact, before I even play him with being analyzed, I'm going to play the clip without any analyzation of it right now. It's 20-some, 30-some seconds like that.
Yes, Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. Everything works. It's the best combination of political freedom, economic prosperity, and social cohesion that the humankind has been able to build. There's three things together. And here Bruges is maybe the good representation of beautiful things, intellectual life, well-being. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it.
Now he omits the fact that the garden stole all of the fruits and all of the material from the jungle. He forgets that the gardeners always go into the jungle to suppress the rise of those in the jungle. He forgets to tell you that the gardeners continually ravages the so-called jungle all across the world. He forgets to tell the people that it is through suppression of those who are in this quote-unquote jungle that the gardeners continue to live big, because they steal the resources, the wealth, and the minerals from what he deemed as the jungle so that they can live in their garden. Is that not genocide? Is that not ethnic cleansing? Or those are not crimes against humanity? Huh? And war crimes. So he openly admits to these things without admitting to them. Well, let's go further. So we have from the diaspora. I want you to listen to this, okay? Pay close attention to this.
A European Union high official is under fire because he said this.
Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it. The jungle has a strong growth capacity, and the wall will never be high enough in order to protect the garden. The gardeners have to go to the jungle.
You can't make this stuff up. Like, how are you a foreign affairs, like a high representative of the European Union, and you get up there on stage and say something like that? Europe is a garden, and the rest of the world is a jungle, a dark place to be in, and Europeans, the gardeners, need to protect their garden, Garden of Eden. I guess that's what he's trying to imply. And the outside world is such a dark jungle with snakes and things that you can't trust. Uncivilized people, basically. And it's just hypocritical. It's ironic how Europeans can say that about the outside world. The same Europeans that colonized people, the same Europeans that enslaved people, the same Europeans that were bombing countries, and the same Europeans that were involved in world wars. So coming from them is just ridiculous. And the audacity is mind-boggling. So a lot of people had issues with what he said, and they were saying how racist it is and how this is an indication of how the Europeans think about, people accuse them of still wanting to exercise neo-colonization. And we all know it's still there. It is still there and alive. And this was a got you moment for a lot of people because they're being vocal about it. So people have been signing petition telling the European Union that this guy needs to be fired. The European Union hasn't said anything. I do not think they will fire him as well, because what did he do wrong? He just said something that they believed in and they have no problem with it. So why should they fire him? That's literally what they think. It's just maybe this guy was open and honest and used a garden and a jungle scenario to explain his point. It's very telling of how the European Union see the rest of the world, and it's just not true, first of all. And secondly, I don't like that point he made about we don't wait for them to come and invade us, we go out there. What is that supposed to mean? Like, is that a threat? Is that saying like we'll have our troops there and we'll make sure that everything goes in order? Because that's literally what is happening right now, especially in Africa. There are lots of foreign troops and we've been saying we don't want them on our grounds, but they refuse to take them out. So you do the math. Why do they need to leave the garden to come to the jungle? To quote him, I'm not saying we're the jungle, but obviously he said the rest of the world, and the rest of the world consists of us as well. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about Joseph Borrell's speech. I am Ongil Zalalam. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
You have talked a lot about security guarantees, and now we've seen your proposals.
That they did that, they hit that. I did not touch that video right there, but we have someone in the Netherlands talking on the screen. So I put a few things up there. Here's one of the comments from Break the Silence, who is in the Netherlands. And they say, Africa will rise into true superpower status this century, and there is no one who can stop it. And when it does, Africa will hopefully show the world how it is done. And also, let me go back to another comment. I want to highlight the comment because I don't want anyone to overlooking the comments or whatever like that. It's just that sometimes when we're into deep discussion, we have to get these points across. And this is a response to me. No, you don't have to be quiet. You don't have to be quiet. We encourage talking and putting your opinion into the chat. You don't have to be quiet. Continue on, and I'll continue every time Rashid talks. I'll continue to check the chat and look at your comments. You do not have to be quiet. This is not America where freedom of speech is only talked about, and it's not given over to everyone. Okay, so Break the Silence says, I do. And they were responding to me when I asked them about living in Europe, and so they know how the leadership of Europe works. And they say, I do, good sir. We are all misrepresented by crooks, serpents who have taken the positions of our leaders. So I'll bring Rashid back into it because I know he wants to keep disconnecting him every time. Rashid, are you there?
Yeah, they threw me off 7 times. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? 7 times I've been
go ahead.
Get back on. Like I said, the truth hurts the guilty. If what we're saying is false, then why did it? You go to all these other shows and internet, they never have any problems like this. But we say a 2-3 words, and it's nothing but problems. The rest of the people can the whole show, and they never get thrown off, kicked off, or they might be muted once. But I wonder why is that?
So we see the racist foreign policy being exposed, especially even from someone from the Netherlands. Someone in Europe is bearing witness to what we're saying here. This is not 2 black guys lying on people. These are 2 people telling the truth on these people who initiate and make policy that drives the world. And if we look at it, you have to deduce by their actions and by the constant doubling down of failed policies that these people are lunatics or they're berserkers, because they continue to push the world towards war. And they continue to try to suppress other peoples to the benefit of others, and still from other people to the benefit of themselves. That's the mind of a thief, a criminal, a robber. You know, if you're in an urban area, you can, and you're talking to people, you can quickly figure a person out, or whether they're a stand-up person, or whether they are about criminal activity or whatever. So we can quickly deduce that these people are the most terrible and the most heinous gangsters ever. These are the thugs, the people who are in the suits, who push policy. These are the thugs and the gangsters. What the people do in the urban community and in the suburbs, that's small change to what these people are doing. They're doing it on a global scale, stealing and robbing and wealth transfer and wealth destruction and suppressing people and murder. And I'm telling you, this is unreal how things are. So I want to go to something. Because some people say that we don't, we're not talking right. We're not telling the truth. But what we do is tell the truth. And we're telling you that, as Rashid said, and he constantly brings this point up on every show, how America and the West believe that they're the kings on the throne. And I can do these things, but you can't. I'm not getting off the throne. You're gonna have to force me off the throne, in so many words. So with a collapsing financial order, with the so-called social states, they knocked them off again. See there? With the social order of states, the disillusionment of what's going to be the European Union, and the civil insurrection and strife that is going to take place within the United States, with the breaking of the military power, because without economics and trade, you can't fund the empire. All that is going on right now. Most people think that America will go silently into the night, but that's not in America and the European Union's nature. So listen to what this guy has to say about the situation that he sees coming up. All right.
Well, I just find it hard to see the U.S. rolling over on this. I know you're saying they might not have a choice, but I can't see them going down without a very, very, very difficult fight here.
Well, that's why this US general said we have to prepare for a big one. That's why China is warning when the US doesn't alter its course, there will be an inevitable conflict. But if you're a world leader, you should plan for different scenarios. So you plan for conflict and you plan for compromise.
Right. Well, I'm just...
So they can't see America just rolling over. Even with this, look, she is internally, she's cracking up. There's a wealth divide, a racial divide, a cultural divide. There is growing instability and dissatisfaction within her own political system, justice system, educational system, and with just across America, blatantly. The food is becoming scarce. Products are becoming scarce. There are bankruptcies, unemployment, growing homelessness. There are bubbles on top of bubbles on top of bubbles on top of bubbles that are about to burst. All of these black swans, and then America continues to wage war across the world. Even with all of those burdens and all of those things on her shoulders, on her back, even these financial pundits don't see America just saying, you know what? I did wrong, let me come back within my border. No, they're saying that America is preparing for war. She wants to go to war to try to prevent anybody else from taking the mantle up, to prevent a non-Western, non-white nation from dominating the world. So this is why NATO, even with all of its contradictions and disagreements, they act as America's lapdog, because they too can't see the world outside of British, French, American, German, or European domination. They don't want that. They don't want to be in the position that you're in. They don't want to be dictated to. They don't want to be in a position where they can't affect policy. So they're preparing for war. if I can't rule, I'm gonna kill everybody, or at least I'm gonna try. That's why America, she openly states that she has a policy called MAD, M-A-D, the acronym MAD, mutually destruction. But for 2 decades, America and NATO has been working to eliminate that scenario. And they have been working towards a nuclear first strike to decapitate Russia. But here's the kicker. Excuse me. I was listening to some old heads, and they were talking about America's foreign policy, and they were talking about the situation between America, NATO, and Russia, and how even when the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we talk about America and Russia almost went to nuclear. We do know now that America had already had in her plans that when she launches the nuclear strike against Russia, she was going to automatically launch nuclear weapons against China. This is what people who were involved in this said. This means that they were saying if Russia and America takes out each other and Europe is gone, we're not going to let a non-white nation come to power. And for those of you who do not know, and Rashid is back in the booth, I'm back in, but the United Nations was set up like this. You have the United States, you have Russia, you have France, you have England. Now there's a 5th Security Council member, permanent Security Council member, which is China. But the plan when they set it up was to have an all-white or all-Christian United Nations Security Council. They believed that Shanghai Czech would eventually win in China. You know that Shanghai Czech was a U.S. and British and NATO stooge, right? We knew that. So they could control them. So they were okay with that. That gives a look of the. But in reality, they wanted it to be an exclusive club of white nations. And you can go do I'm not making this stuff up. Just go do the research on the founding of the United Nations and the plans for the United Nations. That's the way they want it. And most people don't understand that. That's why they limit the power of the General Assembly, because the General Assembly comprises 80 to 90% of the population of the planet Earth. So they wanted Europe and America to dominate politics and economics and geopolitics. That's the way that it was set up. And you can see this in every area of geopolitics, every area of economics, and every area of trade and politics. You can see that today, can't you? And think about this, and I'll bring Rashid in because I know he wants to say something on this before I play a clip. Think about this. You have Antarctica, well, that's what they say, You have South America, you have Central America, you have the Caribbeans, you have Africa, you have Asia, you have Europe, you have the Middle East, which was once called North Africa, and you have the North America. You have all of these areas. The Caribbean does not have a permanent member. Latin America does not have a permanent member. Africa does not have a permanent member. The Middle East does not have a permanent member, right? But Europe gets England, France, and part of Russia, because most of Russia resides in Asia. That and America, right? We got 4. And then you have one recognized Asian nation of China. Now you tell me how fair and objective that is. You tell me how just that is, and how a global system that excludes 90% of the population of the planet Earth can go on. I'm just, you neuter them of any real power to only the UN Security Council can make policy that is binding. And only the UN Security Council can do this and can do that. Now you tell me where the fairness in that is. And remember that these same council members are the ones who continue to persecute and prosecute wars around the globe. Now, where's the fairness, the justice, and the equality in that? Oh, and I'm gonna let Rashid talk on that for just a second. Rashid, I know they keep throwing you off, but you just heard what I said. Give me your take on it. You there? I want, but anyway, let's see. All right.
Time to get
Go ahead.
Get out of
Go ahead.
To leave it, and you can't because the base.
Uh-oh. Hold on. They muted your mic. Hold on.
It's none of us.
All right.
Us.
I unmuted you.
You hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Monitoring the don't want to complete or say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is monitoring this is a kangaroo called the
They disconnected him again, and I'll break the silence. Says they are really attacking his internet connection. Yeah, they do that. They do that to me. They disconnect this stuff, and it's done live on the air because we tell the truth. But we're going to get back to this while he tries to connect himself. Let him get into the booth and get himself together if they can bring him back on. But because we know the time is limited, so we understand what is going on with the people. Now, they label everybody else terrorists. They go across the world, ravaging people. Remember when they invaded Afghanistan, they labeled the Afghani people terrorists, the people who were trying to free their land. They're in Iraq calling those people terrorists. They're in Libya calling those people terrorists. They're in Yemen calling the Liberation Front terrorists. They're in Palestine calling the Palestinian terrorists. They're in Syria calling the Syrians terrorists. Everybody is a terrorist except American NATO. But this Irish MP, Claire Daly, had this to say about terrorists, okay? Pay close attention to this.
State sponsor of terrorism is a term of US law. It doesn't exist in EU law. But a Zelensky advisor called for it in the Parliament magazine, and here we are again reporting for duty. And all it will do is make peace harder to achieve. Exactly, of course, what the extremists want. No peace, no off-ramps, all bridges burning, and Ukraine a permanent abattoir in a suicidal holy crusade against Russia. So, if you want to start naming state sponsors of terrorism, let's do it. European sponsorship of Israeli terrorism in Palestine, Western sponsorship of Saudi terror in Yemen, ISIS, the product of French, American, British, Turkish and Gulf sponsorship in Syria and Iraq. Decades of right-wing US-backed terrorism against the Cuban Revolution, the Contras in Nicaragua, death squads in Guatemala, in El Salvador. Remember Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, horror after horror, terror after terror. There's nothing constructive about the pot calling the kettle black. Would you ever cop on, start championing peace and enter the war which is patently in the interests of EU, Ukraine?
Well, guess what? On that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us for another edition of the most powerful platform for truth on YouTube. Even with all of his obstructions and roadblocks and bumps and whatever, we still continue to try to get the message out. Spread the word. Tell everybody about this. You can also check us out on Locals. Go to the empowerment of truth.locals.com. Join on over there. Go to patreon.com/the Red Pill Diaries. Check out the Red Pill Diaries and our other sister channel, the Red Pill Journals on YouTube. Remember, those are all one word. It's all one word together. The Red Pill Diaries and the Red Pill Journal. Both of those are one word, so it's two. All right, and also check us out on any of the other platforms. We're on Rumble and we're on Odyssey. Check us out on everything. Spread the word. Tell everybody about us. And as we always say, as we go out the same way we came in, with the love of God in our heart and on our mind. And we want freedom, justice, and equality and truth for all people. And we want to tell the truth at all costs. And remember that no matter how much I love you, which I do, God will always love you best. But guess what? I love you, mama. This is the end of the show. Peace.